Good evening and welcome to the stream for this evening. We're going to do a bracelet, a peyote stitch bracelet. So I've done one of these for a while. In fact, I've only ever done one other, so this is going to be an experiment. And not only is this an experiment, it's going to be done using my own design as well. So that could be quite amusing as to whether it actually works or not, but we shall see. So we need some beads out. I need some. I'd kind of prefer to do this using delicate beads, but we're not. We're going to do this using seed beads. Those green's probably a bit too dark for this, but we'll do it anyway. Let's see. Already making a bead to escape. You're as bad as the rings are. So we'll move these that have tried to escape over there. Need more than that, of course, but just put them there. Tip a pile out like that. Red I mainly need the light blue actually, but we need some red and some black. Don't need too many black. We can always get some more out if we need it. So good evening to everybody. Yep. That's a lot more black than I need. Definitely know I don't need that many, but we shall see. Now then, a beading needle is required for this. So that's one of those. Beading needles, if you're not familiar with them, really flexible needles. They bend quite easily, which is quite good for getting through beads. And I need some thread. I'm using Fireline. It looks like whilst there was 50 yards on this reel, it looks like I'm getting quite low. So I'm going to have that much, and about that much extra. And that's not going to be enough, but I will be able to add some in later. And as I've got a pair of scissors here, I'll use this to cut the thread rather than finding my scalpel. Took them to one side. Now then, I have found, purely by coincidence, although I did see a tip somewhere, that the first bit off the reel, if you feed that through your needle, it's easier, because that's kind of the way it's been coated. Although that seems odd, because I'd have thought they'd have wound it onto the reel a different way. But it does seem to work. Squeeze the end with this. This is braided thread, but squeezing the end makes it thinner. Means it goes through the eye of the needle a lot easier. So now you see me trying to thread. Now I generally find it, some people do this with the thread really short. I usually do it with a reasonable length like this, because what I find is it tends to make it sort of finds its own position. Although having said which, this isn't working today. Ah dear. Nope. Okay. Try with a shorter. There we go. Right, so get a couple of inches on the end of that and just bend it over. And I'm going to use a black bead just as a stopping bead, because it's nice and obvious and it's not part of the pattern. And I'm going to go all the way down towards the end of this. Leave myself, I don't know, yeah, a few inches like that. I can always add some more in. And feed that needle back through there so it stops. Looks like people have now worked out what peyote is and left. So I now want 44, I think it is, beads. 1, 2. No, it won't be. Or is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 22. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's 7. It is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're doing even count peyote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And you start it by doing 2 rows in the first row, so to speak. So that's why there's 22 on there, because it's 11. That's odd count. That should not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, well, it's going to be 12, so I'll add 2 more. Won't even count. So there we go. Instantaneous fix. Come on, beads. Or do I want to make it smaller? Let me have a look. I'm going to compare this against another one that I did before. I don't want it any wider, that's for sure. That's close enough. Why am I looking at that thinking, have I done that right? Yes, I have done that right. It's just because there's 22 all in one go. Actually 24 now. So now I start actually doing the peyote weaving. And just for the minute I'm going to just do this sort of one stitch at a time, and this is where it gets annoying because of the long thread for a while, but we will overcome that in time. We will get there. Come on then. Great. So now it starts to get a bit easier to hold this stuff, or it will do shortly. Have I? That's right, those two together like that, that's it. Just want the beads to lie side by side. Now that might be easier as we get the next row on after this, so we will just carry on. I know it gets a little bit messy to start with. Be a little bit fiddly the first active row, that's row 3, just because you are trying to get beads to lay on top of each other, and they don't want to. They want to lie side by side. There we go, we're starting to do it now. He says pulling them apart, which is not what I want it to do. This is where delicate beads are probably a lot easier to do this with, just because they're sort of more rectangular than seed beads. Seed beads have rounded sides, whereas delicate beads have straight sides. They're like a tube, and they sit alongside each other a lot better. Right, so it is really just a case of trying to stay on camera for a start, and trying not to mix up threads. You kind of, yeah, alright, do it that way. You kind of, it's a good idea to do this with sort of the longest threads that you can actually manage, but sometimes managing threads, basically manage means stopping them getting tangled up and everything. Okay, that's alongside there. It gets easier and quicker with the next row, and it gets a bit better with the row after that, and then it just gets routine. But it can be a little bit frustrating to start with. No, you will go that way because I don't want you to tie a knot, which is what you will do if I let you go the way you want it to. That bead sits alongside that one, and I pull it tight. Don't know if you can see, we're getting, put some light on the subject. Sorry about the face cam though, you'll get glare now off that, but it's either you see what I'm doing or you get a little bit of glare. Don't know if you can see, it's got the sort of an up and down sort of pattern there, which is how peyote works. Come on, thank you. And we are getting closer to the goal, which is the end of this row, and then we can start and come back. Let go of everything, thank you. Like with the rings, you will hear me talking to the beads, or more than likely actually talking to the thread. This is perfectly okay until the thread answers back. So, and if you hear that, by the way, please let me know, because it means I'm not going mad. If you don't hear it, then that's a different question. Although, just to give fair warning, we do have ladies' hour in the room, and also at least one cat. So if you do hear something, that doesn't necessarily mean that either of us are going mad. It could be one of the other occupants of the room, and not the thread. Ah! Do not do that. Stay where you are. And what is it about stay where you are that you don't understand? So that's gone through there, that's gone, that sits alongside. Which one is that going to sit alongside? We've come out of there, we're going alongside, and we want to be in that one there. So you're kind of going through every other bead when I put the needle through. So we create that stepped look, which is characteristic of peyote beading. I will be able to adjust the tension of this a little bit if necessary when I come to do the end on this, put the end on this at this end of it, because that thread there isn't tied in a knot or anything, so I'll be able to use that to pull things tight if they're not already. Okay, starting to sit a lot easier now as we're getting closer to this end. No, I don't want you to go through two needle, I want you to go through just the one, Mrs. Wembley, if anybody knows that particular catchphrase. Right. By the way, if you do this, and I did say sort of as long as you can manage at the start, it's probably not a good idea to try doing this with sort of like 16 feet length of cord. That's the wrong place to put that through, so we go through that one there. And we've done our third row. And I have just tied that in. Have I tied that in that? Yeah, I think I have. I don't want a knot, so I'm going to be a little bit careful. That's it. There we go. Those two alongside each other. Right. Turn around. And now this is where it gets a little bit easier doing, well, a little bit easier doing peyote stitching. It gets easier later. Again, because as we add more rows, it becomes more stable, easy to hold. We start row 4. Now this is just like I was about to say, like laying bricks. It's quite a skilled job, but it is just sort of. I'm sat on a cushion, and the cushion edge keeps catching the thread. She got pulled it out of my hand. But they, as you're doing this, the beads just basically lay in the pattern. and so it becomes a lot easier as you progress. Now sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 at once, but it's a lot better to do one at a time. You get a more even tension that way. You don't get confused as to where things are going, and you don't get as much of the thread sort of wrapping itself around odd things and all sorts of other complications. And I learned that doing the only one other peyote stitch bracelet that I've ever done, so don't take me as being an expert, because I'm not. I do like this colour though. So it starts to lay together. Now 1, 2, yeah, not bothered. I've got a pattern next to me that I drew out, but I'm not too bothered where I actually start the pattern in this, so I'm just going to add a couple of more rows of the blue before I start putting pattern into this. Will just make it a lot easier to hold. Right, so good evening to everybody that's watching. Nice to see you in the studio. Feel free to ask any questions if you want to do so. I am just making a bracelet here using beads. These are seed beads. I'm using a method called peyote stitching. I do other crafts as well, do quite a bit of jewellery making, chain style jewellery making, although I've been doing some beadwork recently, and a lot of the chain style jewellery making, which is in the pictures on the bottom left there that you can see. They are, if anyone is interested in any bracelets, necklaces, anklets, or indeed earrings, which they are available to buy from the Etsy shop, which is also listed in the bottom left there, sarragonart.etsy.com. Feel free to check out the shop. And I'll point out the code there on the bottom. I can't run my finger along there because I can't quite get the angle right. There we go. Hand-eye coordination, you see. I'm an artist and I draw things electronically using graphics tablets and screens, and I can't get hand-eye coordination right with this camera. It's a bit silly really. From time to time you will see other art forms or craft forms on the in the studio here. We're in the process of doing some relief carving, but I really at the moment I'm not in the mood for sharp chisels being around the place, which is why I'm doing some jewellery making and some beadwork, because although the needle is relatively sharp, it's not as sharp as the chisels. And so if I jab myself with the needle, it sort of goes ow. If I cut myself with a chisel, it's more serious than that. But we're working on some safe stuff at the moment. But you will also from time to time see me doing pyrography, for example, and you'll see some images of that on the left hand side. That's the pictures that look like their old photographs, the brown sepia print type photographs. That's pyrography. And we do the black and white ones that you'll see are scraper board. Now that's literally is black and white. It's scraper board is a medium which is made by covering a board or some form of backing with porcelain clay, which is rolled flat, and then once that's dried it's coated in black Indian ink, and to form the picture you scrape away the ink basically. And how bright it looks and what shade of colour of grey it looks depends on how much you scrape away and how you scrape it, which is why it's one of the reasons why it's an interesting medium to work in. You may also see a couple of pictures of what look like trains in sort of a woolly material like texture. That's an art form called the manufacturer call it punchcraft, but it's a bit like miniature rug making. That uses what looks like a giant needle to push the thread through the backing material, and which is exactly how they make rugs. They just do it with sort of 1,000 needles at a time. I do it with one, but you can create some really nice looking images like that as well. Oh, there's Ruth. That's the dragon that was carved a little while ago. Live on stream. Pyrography there. Salute to sunset. That's a sunset scene in the African savannah. The elephant there just raising its trunk. And then we're back to some of the jewellery. That one's called Smarties. That's a necklace, is that? A box chain necklace. Right. We are getting close to this end, and then we'll turn it around and do another row, and then I'll start and add the patterning. Yeah, there's a close-up. That's a technique actually called chain mail. So if you looked at it and thought chainmail was jewellery, if you looked at it and thought chainmail was jewellery, you were right. If you looked at it and thought, isn't chainmail armour, the stuff that sort of Knights of Old War? No, it's not. Armour is armour. It might be made using chainmail techniques, but chainmail is not armour. It's no more than bricks are houses. You use bricks to make houses, but you don't have to. You can use them for other things as well. Although I guess if you're talking about Americans, you seem to use a lot of wood in making houses generally. Okay, turn this over, and I'll do one more row, and then as we come back I'll start and do the pattern. Right, yeah. So this is a particular pattern that I've designed for myself. You can, it's just like painting with pixels really. So if you've ever done any sort of pixel art on the computer, this is kind of like it, except that the pixels don't lie side by side. They lay in this sort of brick stepped pattern, and you have to take that into consideration, which makes things different. The other thing you kind of need to take into consideration is that you've got two different styles of peyote, even count and odd count. With even count, the thing is you don't have a centre row. So if you're trying to do like an arrow, for example, the point is offset on even count. So if you want it to be dead in the middle, you need to do odd count, which is people apparently find a lot harder to do. It's all to do with the turnaround at the end, where that becomes an issue. But if you want sort of like perfectly centered patterns, then you need to be doing odd count peyote. But you can get basically graph paper. You can find lots of images online to download, and then just coloured pencil, you can do your own designs. There are computer programs available as well that will do it. And I mean, these are relatively small pixels, and you can't, the computer programs that are available will take, for example, a photograph and convert it to a peyote stitch design. They'll even tell you which particular beads to go out and buy, just like you get cross-stitch patterns the same as well. And then you can create peyote stitch images, or brick stitch, or any of the other stitching patterns. Now this is where you've got to be a little bit careful of knots, which I've got one there. So I just need to feed it out. What happens is gradually or quite often what happens is the thread just twists and gets all knotted up. And so what I'm going to do is try and you get like tangles. Well, you won't be able to see it, but there's tangles there. So what I'm going to just do is just lay that down a minute and just try and take some of the twist out of this. Something that happens whenever you're doing lots of sewing. You tend to spin the needle, shall we say, and the thread, the way the threads are put together also influences it. And I am confused as to where I am. That thread has gone through. Has that got? Something is incorrect there. Right, okay, something is wrong here. Yeah, it looks like I've gone through completely the wrong bead. Now let's see if I can undo this. Sometimes you're lucky by passing the needle backwards through the bead. You can sometimes undo it. Sometimes you you end up wrapping the thread around another one, and it doesn't undo. Let's see if I'm lucky and can manage to get this out. Otherwise what I end up having to do is take the needle off the end and pull the thread out backwards. Get rid of that end of the cushion which keeps catching. I've been lucky. That one's come loose. So 3 mistakes in 1 there. If you're going to make a mistake, do it in 3s. Okay, so I'm in the UK. I'm up in Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, the White Rose County as it's called in the UK. That's the county symbol is a white rose. Just bear with me a second, guys. Lady Zara just wants some assistance with something. I'll just mute the microphone.
The 20.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Right, guys, I am back. Sorry about that. Lady Zara just... She's trying to buy some concert tickets, and the site is really really, really frustrating. She's trying to buy 2 single tickets. You go there, you select the single seat that you want, you add it to your basket. You don't want to check out at this point because you want to add another one. You go and say, I want to add another ticket, and you go back through everything, and and you select your next ticket that you want to add your second one, and the site goes, I know better than you. What you're trying to do is you're trying to swap the tickets. You don't want the one you wanted earlier, you want this one instead. No, I want 2. Yeah, this one and that one. No, you don't. You only want one of them. And it doesn't matter how you do it, it does not want you to buy 2 tickets. It won't let you buy 2 single tickets for the same thing, for the same show. Yeah, they're not even on the same, in the same part of the auditorium. They're in completely different rows.
No, the same row.
Okay, same row, different ends of the same row. They're not next to each other or anything like that. They're just 2 single tickets, and the other seats on that row are already taken up, so it's not like you're splitting pairs, which they don't like doing sometimes, and things like that. Just extremely frustrating experience when you get a website that thinks it knows better than you what it is you're trying to do. You know, the fact that you could say, delete this from my wastebasket, from my basket if I don't want it, that never seems to enter their heads, you know. Oh dear, I think ranting like that probably means everybody's disappeared from the channel now, but anyway.
Alright.
Nah, it's alright. I do find websites that do things like that frustrating. It's like there's another one, I think it's a Daily Mail website. As you scroll down the page, it keeps popping adverts and changing adverts, which reformats the page, which means it moves, which means you lose where you were reading, which means when you scroll down to where you were reading, it changes the adverts and it pops them, and it's really frustrating site to read. Because all they want you to do is to look at the adverts. That's the whole point of the page, and that's why it's coated in the things, and they don't care that you can't actually read the page. They just want you to look at the adverts. And it's quite plain that that's what they're trying to do. But it's frustrating. So now then, I now go look at my pattern. And which side am I going to work from? Doesn't actually matter. Well, it does. So if I say the black's at that side, so I'm at this end here, and I'm going to work as that. Now, am I on this side or am I on the other side? So I am going to add that one in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th one is green. So I had five blues, and the 6th one is green. One. 2. It's not hard counting to 6, and yet here I am not wanting to say anything else in case I lose count. 3, 4. Dear, I do like beads, pretty things, glass, coloured glass, but it's what they used to give to the natives, isn't it? Coloured glass, because it was all pretty. For and kind of every time I go into the hobby shop for something, I'll be going along going, what was it? Oh, I mustn't forget to, oh, pretties. And I start to forget what it is I went in for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see, I'd already forgotten how many I'd done. Now the sixth one I said was, did I say the sixth one? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think so. Boy, is it hard to follow a row across with your eyes. Yeah, it's just one. It gets a bit easier once you've got your first one in, because you then sort of do things as being relative to the bead that you've just put in, and it gets a bit easier to keep track of the things. And I'm just going to unwind this thread again. Take some of the twists out of it. And now I just finish this row with blue, and when I come back I will add to the green. Now some people, when they're doing this, will hold the piece this way all the time and then they'll work backwards. I don't. I turn it over. I find it easier to turn over and work the same way each time, but just a personal preference. There's no right way of doing it. There's no wrong way of doing it. I was about to say unless you do something like try and do it underwater, but okay. Separately or in one?
Separately.
You to buy them as two separate transactions.
Yeah.
Oh dear, they really do.
£2.50.
Yeah, which means they've charged more. Yeah, because they charge you an administration fee per order.
No, it's only the postage actually, £2.50.
Okay. Alright, they charge you postage per order, but they make you order twice. So they charge you twice. Now when I come back
Could so easily not have gotten a one.
here, so this time I want one just before that green there, right? Gotta try and keep the tension up. Why does that look odd? So this can be quite a relaxing sort of thing to do. You know, it can get, at the start it gets a little bit frustrating. That's not relaxing, but once you've got a stable sort of weave, what this is, it's stable now, and it's big enough to hold nice and comfortably. It just becomes quite relaxing, really. The skill comes in doing it, you know, with speed and getting tension right. I don't think it's particularly an amazingly skillful thing to put beads on a needle, but doing it fast and it is definitely a skill, and getting the tension right is definitely a skill to develop. I did actually hear something the other night which had me rolling about, and I've forgotten who it was I was talking to. It was another streamer who was watching my stream, and we got onto the subject of perler beads and skill, and they were telling me about about streamers who suggest that putting perler beads on a board is a skillful thing, and there is a skill, I admit, to doing that. Not knocking them off and banging them all over the place. And there's a skill to designing pictures and things, but literally just putting beads on a board, it's not a hard skill. And he was telling me about some streamers that claim it's a hard skill, and his response to that was, perler beads are designed for 5 to 11-year-olds. And so adults who claim it's a hard skill, and it had me rolling on almost rolling on the floor. Literally, I couldn't stop laughing for about 5 minutes. And of course, it's perfectly true. Perler beads, it does say on the package, 5 to 11-year-olds. Now then, I'm now coming back that way, so another green one. And I've gone through 2 beads there. Don't quite know how I managed that, but I did. Hopefully I can backstitch that. Yep. Now I've lost my tension a little bit there, so we'll just get hold of that thread and pull, and then put that one back in place. What I will do as we develop this further, what I will do is just manipulate it. Once there's more thread in place, once there's more beads, I'll just manipulate the thing backwards and forwards, bending it, which then evens out the tension of the thread across the whole of the piece. So you don't get stiff areas and loose areas, and it flows a lot nicer as well. We have a junior in the studio. Currently he's really interested in what Lady Zara is doing. He sat watching her. Now, unfortunately he does have no interest, it looks like, in sitting on her knee, but she's trying to persuade him. He quite often is a cat that quite often will just sit and watch you. He just wants to be with you. He doesn't want to be on your knee. He doesn't want you to stroke him or anything. He just wants to be with you. Just sat there. Yeah, there's that twisted. Come on, drop into place. Okay, let's try this with pliers. Why will that not sit where I want it to sit? There it is. Use the pliers, not just gently, just because they're a bit easier to get hold of the beads with. And then blue again. And I'm going to do I'm going to end up back at that. So this is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. Just checking you haven't lost where I was in the pattern. Very easy to do. As I say, it gets a little bit easier as the pattern builds to see where you are. And I am now glad I used that black bead as a stopper bead rather than using a blue one, because it helps me to say, hey, that's the bottom left edge. Yeah, you can tell my tension is increasing slightly as I am working up this piece, because the edges are slanting in a bit. Flip it over and come back the other way. And so that's that, yeah, one green, and then as we come back the next time we'll be putting, I think it's 2 greens in, and we'll build up the pattern from there. I think, although I am quite enjoying doing this, I think I prefer already I was about to say the perla beads. What I actually meant was the delica beads for doing this, because of their regular shape. These having a slightly rounded edge, they don't sit as quite as nice. And what have I messed up there? Nothing, I just got the bead in the wrong place. And the next one will be green. Junior has decided he would like a little bit of attention, and Lady Zara has persuaded him now to sit on her knee. Which means both of them will enjoy it. And if I could do multiple on this with delicate beads, it's easier to do one at a time than it is to try and do multiple beads in one go along the row. But don't know if it's these are any different. Okay, and now we so 1, 2, 3, 4. We now do so that looks 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've got another 2 rows with just the green on. The 2 greens before we expand that out. Purposely not telling you what the pattern is, but we'll let it be a surprise as it builds. And now that the peyote stitch is established, it's really easy to get the needle through the individual beads, because they all stand up really nice and proud of the surface, and it's an easy matter just to thread the needle through. I don't want one of those, I want a green one. Well, the hardest bits about doing this is actually just stopping the thread catching on the beads and getting wrapped around them. You don't want that to happen, and especially you don't want it to happen and not notice it until sort of a row or 2 later on, because then you have to undo what you've just done and pull it all the way back to sort out the problem. We come back on this edge, 1, 2, 3, yeah, and then the next row is when we start adding extra green beads, not this one but the next one. It's amazing how many beads you go through. You start with a large pile of beads and they very slowly but very gradually and just vanish. And what started as a large pile turns into quite a small ribbon of beads just strung together like this. Right, well, we're coming up to 10 o'clock, which is the time the stream normally ends, so I think that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to call it an evening for the stream. Say thank you to everybody that has been watching or is watching. I am going to once again point out the shop, Etsy. There's arrogantart.etsy.com for all these nice jewellery items that you're seeing there, all available in the shop with a discount coupon, which is there. Also tells you in the shop if you check the shop as well, so not hiding anything. And I'm going to obviously say if you're watching and not following, please push the follow button, that way you'll get notified when I go live. You may also like to follow me on Twitter, it's @arrogantart. That gets notified when I go live as well, but I also will sort of tweet out if there's a problem when I can't go live as well, so it's a good one to follow me on there. And apart from that, if you would just like to try and catch me on my next stream, I am hoping, I don't see any reason at this moment in time, but I should be on again tomorrow evening from about 8 PM UK time, 2000 hours UTC or GMT. So from, as I said earlier, the White Rose, County of Yorkshire in the UK, I'm going to say thank you for watching, have a good evening, and see you on the next stream in the studio. Bye for now.